boxing may have needed a star then by the start of the 1970s, and on cue, John Conte arrived.
Conte on his night was one of the great fighters. His temperament perhaps was his Achilles heel. You know, that's what prevented him, I think, from realising his full potential. He was a very volatile, emotional, impulsive man, and sometimes didn't always make the right decisions in his career. But as a fighter, he was as complete as I've ever seen in the British ring.
Then what were his main talents for you?
I think he was such a good boxer. He could also punch well, but I mean he was very, very good. He was very colourful as well. And we talk about his, maybe his personality, which went against him. I think often with fighters, it's that same personality which makes them the fighters that they are as well. And spontaneous, and he did different things, and he was a very good all-round fighter.
He was also utterly ruthless in the ring.
Yeah.
He had that iron in him, which British fighters don't always have.
And sparring as well.
Oh,
He sparred with cousin one, Johnny Wall, and he could take a few liberties in sparring.
Frank, do you think he now looks back on his career and realises that he could have done so much more in boxing?
I think you see that with a lot of guys. I think he made a mistake when he left his management, and I think he let some of his brothers looked after his career, and I think things just went from bad to worse for him then. And he also had a bad hand problem, his right hand. I think when he fought Saad Mohammed the second time, he hardly threw a right hand in the whole fight. And unfortunately, if you want to stay as champion, it's got to be all or nothing, and it wasn't there that night. But he's on my top 3 list of great British fighters, and I think he could have been a 20 times better fighter if he'd actually played the game.
Well, Conte was a star amateur and went on to become a star professional. The quality was always evident. There were some surprise stories in this period, in the sense a man like Lloyd Hunnigan, maybe early in his career, Harry, he would never have been picked out and pointed up as a future world champion. No. Is that fair?
I mean, we've talked about Randolph Turpin beating Sugar Ray Robinson being the great surprise of the 50s. Well, Lloyd Hunnigan beating Don Curry was probably as great a surprise in its way, because Curry was universally regarded as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He was defending against Hunnigan, whom nobody outside Britain had ever heard of. He was defending in America, and Hunnigan absolutely destroyed him, beat him in 6 rounds. Curry just couldn't take anymore.
And Glenn, to his credit, he did subsequently prove it wasn't like Randy Turpin. It wasn't like a one night when everything went right. He held his crown and
That's
did well.
right, he did defend it, and he did look good in several fights. I think he also suffered quite a bit with injuries and bad hands and all that, but certainly on that night against Donald Curry, everything went right in his career, and he was as near perfect as you could get. And I think everybody would, certainly I would have put my house on it, because Don Curry was just spectacular at that time, and Hunnigan just come away and just, was just so good on that night.
What were the keys to that victory? One remembers Curry coming over here and absolutely destroying Colin Jones.
I promoted the fight.
Indeed. And
you say he destroyed him, and what happened with Colin? He got a very bad cut on the bridge of his nose, and Eddie Thomas, who's the manager of Colin Jones, and I, we watched very closely all of Curry's fight. We travelled all over the place watching probably his last 3 or 4 fights. And what we noticed each time that he just could not make the weight. He was really struggling, Don Curry, to make the weight, and that's why we went for the fight with Colin Jones. And I think had Colin not got the bad cut over the bridge of his nose, and I think the fight would have gone on. It'd been interesting to see what had happened with Curry, because I don't think Curry was a good 5-round, 6-round fighter. I think after that, I think he struggled. The weight was really difficult for him to make. And I think that the work rate that Lloyd had in that fight in Atlantic City was brilliant, and he'd done a superb job of it.
Other success stories for Britain at this time: Alan Minter, Charlie Magri.
Minter was a very good amateur who got a bronze medal in the Olympics. So I think as a long career, he did well right from as a boy to when he won the world title against Vito Antuofermo, and it was a long and distinguished career with some very good fights, and then he was tough, and he was a very good southpaw.
Andy won the title in America. He went to Las Vegas and beat Antuofermo in Vegas, which takes a bit of doing.
Charlie Magri?
Charlie was a great box office. I mean, Frank, I'm sure, would have loved to have been his promoter at that period. I know you promoted him late in his career, but I mean, the Charlie Magri on the way up was an explosive, exciting fighter, but vulnerable. I mean, that was part of his attraction, of course. You never knew whether Charlie was going to knock the guy out or be knocked out himself, and he was wonderful to watch, but that vulnerability to punch just knocks him out of contention, so to speak. Yeah.
Frank, as we come up to the present times, I just wonder if we've actually got a seam of big stars back in British boxing now. The first of them would be Barry McGuigan.
Yeah, Barry. I managed Barry in the last year of his career, and Barry was great box office. tremendous box office. Great fighter, good fighter coming forward. He didn't like boxers too much, as was proven, I think, with Steve Cruz, and when he fought Cabrera, Charm Chichuli, anybody who could jab. It took him a while to get to them. My only disappointment was that you never see how good he was, because he didn't fight Azuma Nelson, and that would have been a great fight.
I think he regrets that too.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, but that was a great fight, and we was near to making that fight at one time, but it just didn't happen. And I think that would have been an interesting situation, because Barry, on his day, was a great fighter.
Glenn?
It certainly was, and he was a fighter that could really get the passion in people. I mean, memorable his fight with Pedroza.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fabulous night, and I don't think there was many people missed that fight, where he really, got a whole crowd going. Just a busy little fighter who just didn't keep off. Was on the pace all the time, and he was good. He's still the same in the sky.
Yes, he is. Absolutely, it's difficult to get a word in edgeways sometimes.
But I think he was also the best body puncher I've seen, and best British or home-produced body puncher that I've ever seen. Wicked body puncher.
Well, but Barry talks a lot about this, Harry, and he believes one of the reasons this was such a successful part of his army is that he spent time going to school in the United States, working in gyms in the USA. Frank, I wonder if you feel that maybe more of our younger boxers should have a little spell out there.
I think it's all about the trainers, and unfortunately there aren't that many great trainers around these days. There's only a few in this country. In the United States there are a lot of frauds around. It's a big country. They've got more to choose from, but there are a lot of frauds around who make themselves out to be great trainers, and we've seen some of the terrible things that's happening in the last few weeks with so-called trainers in with great fighters. But I just think that is good. Any experience for a fighter is good. Certainly Glenn, he sparred with Mike Tyson out in the States, and moving around with guys, and if you do okay with them, it obviously helps to build confidence, especially with young fighters. Any experience is good experience, provided you learn from it, and it suited Barry.
The most improbable success story of the modern era, surely for British boxing. Again, a man who went to America, but he wasn't going to school. He wasn't a young fighter. He was in mid-career, and he was a failure. Then Dennis Andrews went to school in the Kronk. And turned his career around. Now, not even you saw this coming, did you?
I've known Dennis from before I got into boxing. He comes from Hackney, near Islington, where I come from, and he is just a dedicated sportsman. I've never met anybody who trains as hard as he does, keeps himself in such great condition, strong, determined. I remember seeing him fight Bunny Johnson. Was that the
worst British
fight? It was the worst fight you've ever seen.
True.
They fell out the ring 5 times. Actually fell out the ring, both. But he got his career together after he got beat by Thomas Hearns in Detroit. Got his career together, went to the Kronk Gymnasium, and just turned his style and himself around. And full credit to him. He is, he's a handful for anybody. And full credit to him. I think Dennis he'd certainly be one of my champions for determination.
I think in the strict sense of the word, he is the most professional fighter that I've come across. He regards boxing as his job, and he works very honestly and conscientiously at it. Utterly dedicated, obsessively training and fit all the time.
Frank Bruno doggedly pursued his goals of becoming a world heavyweight champion, Harry.
Well, he
was certainly loved by the British public as a result of that.
Sure, he was the heroic failure, wasn't he, for so long, and then he finally got it right on the night and left us all with egg on our face. But I think really lovely man and everything, but like Henry Cooper, which is a good parallel, huge public affection for him, but not a world-class fighter in the ultimate assessment.
You've mentioned Andrews there, but Bruno matched him surely for his determination and his commitment to the hard work that boxers have to do.
Certainly, but Dennis won and Frank didn't. Has been the difference between them.
Well, he did it, yeah.
He did.
He had a happy ending.
He got his just rewards for a long, hard career. Where at times he had it maybe easier than some fighters with his management.
Well,
but I think again he stuck at it when a lot of fighters would have given up. When he had failures, and he still stuck at it. Finally, he deserved his night of glory.
He had it easy. Well, Dennis never had it easy.
No,
he won his world title the second time in America and the third time in Australia. Well, that's a tough way to be a champion.
You're saying he had it easy. If you really look at and analyse who he fought in his world championship, he fought the best heavyweights around at each time. He did something that Henry didn't do. Henry wouldn't fight Sonny Liston. But he fought Witherspoon. He fought Bone Crusher. He fought all these guys around Tyson. Fought all of them when they were the best around, pound for pound heavyweights, supposed to have been the best heavyweights around. He fought all of them. He got beat 3 times, but he certainly fought them. He didn't duck out of it.
Public lapped it up, certainly. And they also